Hi, everyone. This is Podcasts for Patients with the Aplastic Anemia and MDS International Foundation. I'm Lee Clark, Director of Patient Services. Our podcast series is brought to you by the generous support of our patients, families, and caregivers just like you, and our corporate sponsors. Thank you to everyone for supporting the series. Today, we're going to be talking with Evan Rossman about his PNH journey. Welcome, Evan.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks so much for having me.
We're doing great. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Evan, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so a little context, like Lee said, Evan Rossman, I'm 29 years old. I'm based in New York City, and I've been living here for around 8 years after graduating college. And I'm currently, working, enjoying life, spending time with friends, and yeah, just slowly moving along. But yeah, that's a little background on me.
Thanks so much, Evan. Tell us a little bit about what were you doing and how were things going before your diagnosis of PNH?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at this point a little over 2.5 years ago. It was just ending COVID, I would say, just about during that time. I was, biking a lot. I was extremely active as a person, and then, obviously had certain career goals and, with friends was planning on traveling. Obviously, with COVID, that sort of got changed and, pre PNH, I definitely had a different outlook on, what I wanted to do, what goals I wanted to set, both physically, mentally, professionally, stuff like that.
And Evan, what kind of led you to the diagnosis of PNH?
Yes. So it was, like I said, at that time, it was the summer and the world was just opening back up. And I went to a baseball game with my father and my friend, and my father's in the medical field and looked at me and recognized that my coloring looked off and went to go get a blood test after that. I was hesitant to do so. I wasn't feeling any symptoms. I was biking around 20 miles a day at that point. And then from there, once the blood test came back, my hemoglobin was under a 5 or close to a 5 at that point. And from there, sort of the process began. And I got a lot of tests done. And during that week period of time, I was, lucky enough to be diagnosed in only a week. And then my journey sort of started there.
Prior to giving you the formal diagnosis of PNH, did they kind of talk to you about other possibilities?
Yeah, it was more so that they weren't sure what was off, but because of my hemoglobin levels, and then prior to that, which we found out obviously during that week of a lot of testing, was that my knee was very much hurting me. And I thought it was due to biking or exercise. I actually even got it x-rayed and there was nothing that came back. And after, the diagnosis, the hemoglobin, we checked, did a sort of scan of my leg specifically, and then that's when they found two blood clots. So the blood clots with the low hemoglobin sort of led to that diagnosis of PNH. It was sort of just the right time, right place. I mean, comparatively to what I've heard in the community, I'm extremely lucky to have been diagnosed in such a short period of time. But those were the two main factors. So, like the blood clotting in my leg, and then the low hemoglobin count as well.
The diagnosis of the blood clots must have been very scary for you and your family.
Yeah, there were two blood clots in and above my leg. I mean, I thought it was just like an injury from biking related or exercise. And, I was actually supposed to fly to Seattle, the next week with my friends on a vacation. Flying with blood clots is extremely dangerous. So, it was a very scary time and a lot of things were happening at once. So it was a lot to take in, especially the diagnosis, the blood clots, everything else, learning about the disease. It was a stressful and probably the most stressful time of my life up to that point.
Absolutely. And once you got the diagnosis, I mean, what did your medical team tell you about PNH?
Yeah, so lucky for me being in New York, I have access, I had access to doctors or still have access to doctors that are specialized in PNH and informed in it. And my hematologist at the time he was the one who suggested it like 3 days into the week, being like, you should look at this disease and look up what it is and everything around it. And unfortunately, looking up PNH even 2 years ago was very scary. The first article that I found gave a life expectancy of 5 to 10 years. Obviously, that not being the case, but there was a lack of information and a lack of knowledge on it, in the sense that I did get packets and pamphlets, but when you get diagnosed with any disease that is extremely serious or rare, it's a lot of information at once. You're stressed about dealing with the diagnosis, let alone processing everything that's going on and being able to do research. So it took me definitely a couple days and weeks to process everything. And with the medical team, they provided me more so documentation, videos, understandings, learnings about PNH. But I think I really was able to process and synthesize everything when I got to put in touch with someone else in the community. And I was able to talk to him in detail about PNH, what it was, what I can and can't do, my limitations, how he's, surviving, how he's living his life currently. And from there, I think I had a better understanding. It definitely took me, longer than you would expect to get up to speed with the disease.
Being diagnosed and trying to absorb all of that information is very overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's a lot for, I would say now, not like an old man at 29, but at 26, my 26, 27, my whole perspective on life slash like, understanding of where I was and was a lot different. And so it was something that's like, how could this happen to me at 26, 27? I was doing this, and now I can't, now I have to do this. And so it was definitely something that at that time was really hard to process. And it took a big weight on me, both, mentally, physically, and just me personally. I'm someone who likes to do a lot of research before I say something or do something or just learn about something or say that I can, do or do this, whether that be like professionally or just my personal life. So it was really hard to process this with the diagnosis, with my age, with everything going on, with like where I was, in life, in the world, everything like that. It was definitely difficult.
And with your medical team, what treatment options were you given?
So I first had to go get a blood transfusion and then an iron transfusion immediately. And then from there, I talked with my medical team about what different, drugs to go on and what the recommendations would be. And, I went to get a second opinion as well. And at the end of the day, they prescribed me Ultomiris, and that's the drug I've been on since diagnosis, as it's taken really well to me. And I've been, really happy while on that treatment. And so that was really the main, treatment option at that period of time. That was the one that was recommended. And then from there, since diagnosis, it's been going really well. And, I'm happy to say that there hasn't been much issues while on that treatment so far.
Have you had any side effects at all from PNH treatment?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was, some of them being like, either rashes or fatigue or, things along the lines of that, but not really that significant of symptoms of treatment, I would say. I think overall my experience has been great with the treatment, and it's definitely helping me. It's just, with this treatment specifically, it's every 8 weeks. So I'm beholden to go to the treatment center every 8 weeks, and I have to plan my life and everything that I do around that schedule to a very intense, regimen. But after learning and understanding that's how life's going to be for me moving forward, unless something else comes along, I've been able to do that pretty well, I would say, this year so far.
Since you've been on treatment, how has life changed?
Yeah, I mean, everything's changed, I would say. For me, it's changed a lot mentally. Physically, I'm still able to do things that I wanted to do, and I think in that aspect, I'm lucky that it hasn't changed. But definitely mentally, it takes a weight on you when you get diagnosed with a rare disease, and and being able to sort of still have the same goals. And for me, it was professionally, like goals I wanted to do in my career, in my lifetime. Being able to do those with this disease was a daunting feat. And I think that being able to think about it and understand, everything is still possible. You don't have to change everything about yourself. You have to be able to manage expectations and manage your energy and say no and say yes to certain things. My life's become, instead of, saying yes to everything or saying no to everything, it's picking and choosing your battles and the things that you want to do. For me personally, I still have the same ambitions and goals that I had before PNH, and I want to hit them. It's just going to take a longer time to do that. And accepting that it was the hardest thing. And I think that's, saying nothing's changed would be crazy. But yeah, I would say that my answer would be everything has changed. And it's just, making sure that I could get as close to as I was before PNH with my goals and abilities after PNH. And I think as you get older and things change, obviously, and you can't do what you want to do anymore, but you have to still keep those goals and dreams and aspirations to move forward.
Evan, having a support team can be life-changing for patients. How has your support team supported you, and how has that impacted your journey?
Yeah, I would say that my support team's, incredible, and it consists of my friends and family. I personally, getting diagnosed, told all my friends and family about the disease, about what to expect, about how I'm going to be, what the symptoms are, how sort of I'm going to be, different moving forward. And I want you guys to know that if I say no to a social event, or if I'm not feeling well today, or I have low energy, you know, understand that it's not that I want this. It's part of the disease. And the support team has been absolutely incredible. And I always recommend to other patients and other people diagnosed with, similar diseases, to tell your friends, tell your family, like inform them of how you're feeling and what the disease is and what's going to happen, because it makes it a lot easier to go to certain events, or do certain things, or not do certain things. In that case, tell them that, hey, I'm not feeling up for this. Like, I have a really low energy today. I'm not going to do it. So being able to tell them earnestly and honestly about how I'm feeling is extremely important, and has helped me, you know, be able to reach goals that I want to this year and in my life moving forward. So the sport team is everything to me.
Thanks so much, Evan, for sharing all of this great advice. So my last question for you is, if you could speak to a newly diagnosed patient and give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's a great question, and this is what I would recommend. And it's obviously that PNH is different person to person. Every case is specific to you and you alone. But my piece of advice would be energy management. And what has worked well for me is managing your energy. And that means what I do, how I operate by that is by, resting or relaxing or not doing things a certain amount of days to be able to do that one event you really want to go to, or that one thing, you set your goal out that week. For me it's little things. It's like, resting and relaxing because I have a friend's 30th birthday party on Friday. So not doing anything, and balancing my energy to be able to go to that event. For me, it's sometimes as simple as like getting up and going to the gym, or going on a 15-minute walk. Setting those little goals and managing your energy in order to go to certain events, or to go to things that you want to do. That's the one piece of advice I would give to people, who are diagnosed and who are trying to, figure that out as they go throughout their diagnosis with PNH, or, other disease similar.
Thanks so much, Evan, for joining us today and sharing your own personal experiences to help other PNH patients and families. If you'd like to find out more about PNH, please visit our website, aamds.org, or please feel free to give us a call at 800-747-2820. This ends our podcast.